Tom, so great to have you here.
Thanks, buddy. It's great to be here.
You know, you were just explaining to me that your career has gotten to the point where you can be as late as you want to now, and that's great.
Exactly. I heard what time you wanted me here, and I said, fuck that. And
Yeah.
I came
That's
later.
That's a great way to live, though. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be an asshole as often as I can to
It's
as many
working.
people. Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
But you and I were just talking, walking over, things are really at the right progression working for you. You know, you haven't had that spin your whole life over thing yet, right?
Right. No, yeah. No, things have gotten progressively better over the last few years, and I'm not an addict yet.
Right.
So that's good.
Yeah. Well, I think when it happens for some people young, you can understand why they would be an addict.
Dude, I totally understand. I remember when I got, I booked a Subway commercial campaign with Jared, the molester.
The molester.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nicest thing you can say about him. I saw the charges.
Right. And so we shot some commercials, and they're like, you're going to be so recognized from these commercials because we're gonna shoot 10 to start, and you're gonna be like as recognizable as Jared. And I was like, yeah, but like for Subway, you know. But then the money was like, it was really crazy too. But I was 25, and I remember right away being like, first I'll get a Porsche, and then we'll see what's left, you know. And it didn't pan out. Like they fired the marketing the ad agency. So then they killed the ad. And I remember my wife being like I was bummed at first because it was such an opportunity that went away. And she goes, yeah, but you'd just be known as a guy that does Subway commercials. Don't you think it is better that it goes away and maybe something else will pan out for you?
Yeah.
And it did, but it just took, 10 years.
Another 10 years to get to the point where if it was you and Jarrett, you would be riding around together.
Oh, man.
Hey, everybody, you're holding up sandwiches. Ready to go. Am I right? The turkey?
It's fucking... Dude, here's the thing, too, is that the reason that they hired me is because Jared could only plug healthy subs. So they're like, what about the meatball sub? And they're like, this way you get Segura, and they're like, these are good too. And that's why I was hired.
I don't care about healthy.
In the campaign, I was his brother.
His brother?
Yeah. I was his brother, Jerome. And when I told one of the ad reps, I was like, don't you think that's like kind of it kind of sounds like a black dude's name? And they were like, you know what? We talked about it, and you're right. And so your new name is Jermaine. And that wasn't a joke. I was like, that's blacker than shit. Like, that's so black.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's who
Jackson
you are.
5 black.
That's so
how
black.
That's how black you are at that point.
Yeah, man. And that's weird. I have his phone number in my phone.
Yeah.
Jared's.
Yeah.
And when we shot, I remember they were like, hey, Jared, like he has a friend that would tail along, and they were like, he was like, I heard the ad guys talking about that you're gaining weight. And he was like, fuck that shit, man, I'm not gaining weight. And there was like all this behind the scenes, like they always watched his weight. And then he goes, hey, do you want to hang out tonight? This is after we shot the first commercial. And I go, all right. And he goes, cool, let's get a pizza. Yeah. We had a pizza.
He never sent you an email and said, like, download this.
No.
It's awesome.
No. There's a couple of comics that have sent me questionable stuff,
right.
but nothing quite like that. No.
But isn't that weird? Like when that shit must have went south, you're like, fuck.
Yes.
There's plenty of pictures with me and with him.
Dude, what also just came to mind, like, man, like, what if that thing had gone? Like, now I would be like this vaguely known guy from Subway commercials who's pretty close with Jared the molester.
Yeah.
And there definitely would be like hundreds of emails between us by now.
Sure.
You know, where he would have like inched into it like, 20-year-olds are hot, right? And I'd be like, yeah. And then he'd be like, what about 19? I'd be like, okay. Just keep working his way down.
Yeah.
Like,
so finally, 11, right? I mean, that's...
I'd be like, I don't know. I can see how they'll be pretty one day, I guess.
So, woo, got out of that.
Got out of that, yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
But that is the funny thing too about this business. I was just talking to somebody today. They're like, we don't know what it's going to be, because I remember when you told me that your special was going on Netflix. I'm like, oh, is that a good idea? You know what I mean? At the time, I wasn't sure.
I mean, you know, I met with their entire department this week, the entire specials and comedy department, and they had me come in and sit like this with the department watching and talking about just, you know, basically to share with some of them who've never met comedians what it's like, and the whole idea of putting together a special. And I was telling them that when the first one was shot, it was in specials, there's originals and there's licensed specials. So the first one was shot by New Wave, and then I remember calling my manager, like, what are we going to do with it? Well, we're going to shop it now. So they send it to everybody. They send it to Showtime, Comedy Central, HBO, Netflix, and so on. So the first thing was that Comedy Central was like, hey, we like it, but how are we supposed to market it? Like, what's the theme? And I was like, funny jokes? I don't know. Like, and they're like, but there's no like theme to it. And I was like, are you serious? Right? Like, it felt like that was just like the way to say no. Like that was the how you can pass on it. And I was like, okay. And then it was like through, you know, the next one, they were like, hey, so Netflix will take it. And then the whole thing was like, you know, I guess that's not that bad. Yeah. That was the perspective then, that well, you know, hey, some people have Netflix, like stuff like that. Yeah. And now it's like the most, like if you're a comedian,
it's everything.
It's the most desirable place. I just talked last night to Joe Rogan, and his special came out like a week ago, and he goes, by far 1,000 times more feedback than I've ever gotten on anything I've ever done. He goes, I cannot believe the response. And I mean, it all makes sense. There's 100 million plus people with it now. Yeah. That's their platform, and they can watch it whenever they want.
Well, yeah, and when you go to, it's sitting there. It's like literally, like I just had some friends that had some stuff on some of the other platforms. It came out that night. Who knows what happened to it after that? But yours is sitting on the front page.
Right.
You know, it's amazing. And people see it over and over and over. And when I saw Ali Wong's on there,
it's tremendous.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. And I'm like, let's just watch it again. You know what I mean? Like it's that. Yeah. So, and I think that happened with a lot of people.
It has. Well, it's happened. I mean, it's happened with a lot of people, but you know, it still has to be special for it to really work out. Like Ali's, you know, is really good, and she is now experiencing the benefits of that. Like she's selling out, adding shows, theaters, but it's really good, and then audience found it. Because I also get hit up by guys who have specials on there. They're like, hey, it went up, so like when does shit start to pop off? And I'm like, I don't know, man, you just gotta see what happens, you know.
Well, you know, I saw Ali right after she had the baby, then she came east, and like I thought that special was so good, I got on a train, went down to DC, did this here, and she's like, you know, she's still walking around with the thing to drain your breasts. What is that called? Like that? Yeah, it's a breast pump. So she's like, I need 5 minutes before we do. So, and she's like, and I'm like, man, this special, has you beaten? She goes, this is the first time, but it's sold out. So I think this is good. And I'm like, oh, dude, wait.
It's
really good.
Yeah, I just did some shows with her in Texas, and I just keep encouraging her to spend money. Cause she's so not used to the checks that she's getting. I'm like, she's going to Hawaii, and she's like, I got an Airbnb. I was like, cancel that shit right now. And I was like, here's the link to the Four Seasons. Stay there.
Because she's not trusting in it yet.
Well, I think it's so fresh. Yeah. It's so new. But like I think she just added like 6 shows at this theater in LA. She'd added 4 or 5 here. Town Hall or something.
Yeah. She's giant coming back to New York. Tickets, I mean, that's really, really a big deal.
It's a huge
particularly when she was living in here not too long ago and running around Brooklyn doing, you know, whatever these mics were.
It's like you can't predict that to happen. You know what I mean? Like those things, it's like everything aligns. You have the platform, which is what they provide you, Netflix. You have the only thing you truly control as the comic is your material and your performance. She did that, and then it's like the universe, the culture. It just hits. It comes out at the right time, and the right people find it, and it goes like, hey, this is gonna pop off. So
And when it
just
doesn't, you just get back to work.
that's all you can do.
Yeah.
That's all you can. It's all you can do. It's like so, one comic told me, he goes, I haven't really experienced that much fanfare since this Netflix special came out. And I go, yeah, but he goes, I saw, a bunch of people like shitting on it and hating on it. And I go, yeah, but those guys, so now those guys will not come to your show. But the cool thing is that there's people that saw it that will. So you gain something.
Right.
Somebody out there became a fan because of it. And all you can do is just keep doing what you do. There's no other option, or quit, so you just got to keep moving forward.
See, that's the thing about you. It's like, I don't ever catch you being ambitious. I never catch you being nervous about your career. Is there a part of you that's thinking on the business side of things, or you just let it happen if it happens?
No, I think about it a lot.
Yeah.
I think about it a lot. And I mean, I think I'm just aware of the things that I control.
Right.
So like I control making sure that we have a podcast that's up and ready to go. And, I talk to the ad agents, and I know that the material that we're going to break down in the I control that. I control getting up, doing spots, being smart about going back to certain markets with, I always try to be like, well, no, I was in Denver with this stuff, so I'm not going to go back until it's all new. I can, I think about things like that, think about development stuff with, meeting with writers. But as far as I think comics get worked up about things that are out of their control.
Yeah, sure.
So you go like, dude, that's just, you can't control that part. Just let it go.
So you like the business side of the business, but
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not going to sit around and fret why somebody else got something that you didn't do. It just doesn't seem to be in you.
You have to stop looking at that merit based.
Yeah.
That's what comedians do. Why'd you get that? How'd you get that? It's like, dude, you just got it. Like, it's not always because that person didn't sell 1,000 more tickets than you sold because they're 1,000 tickets funnier.
Right.
It's just like, that's just the way things develop. That's just the way it goes. Like, you can't worry about the little details like that. You just worry about doing your work, and things will happen if you just focus on that.
Well, here's something about you that I noticed, and I was back from watching the last couple of specials, and you probably deserve some money back from the theater on this, because you use less stage than any comedian I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, there's a lot more stage there, Tom, that you were paying for.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. I almost feel like I should apologize to my cousin, Brian. So, like, my cousin, the first time he saw the first special, he's like, hey, I saw your special. And, like, with family, honestly, all you want to hear is, like, great job.
Right, that's
like,
it.
That's it. So he goes, you really don't move that much. And I'm like, that's your feedback on this shit? And he goes, I just think, if you were to, like, even do some little things, I'm like, fucking dance around or something? And he's like, well, just, like, pick up a bottle of water and kind of, like, he's like, it would be more engaging to the eyes. I'm like, why don't you worry about what you fucking have to do, okay? And then since that special, like, people message me, and they're like, you're so lazy. You just stand there. And I'm like, wow, this is really something people notice. So on the second special, it's funny, if you were to actually look side by side, I'm a fucking marathon runner in the second one. And that's just because I do this a couple times, and like I take 2 steps this way and back. But I've never been funny enough, when I started doing stand-up, I was so obsessed with Chris Rock that I would just mimic him. And like, I'm not even aware of it. I was pacing, like, how he paces the stage and crouches, and I have footage of it, and I'm far too ashamed to ever put it up. But like, I think the more that I kind of settled into it, I just don't fucking move, man. I
think that's so great, because no one would think you and Chris Rock, but that's what got you on stage. That's what did it at first.
It's great, and I actually did a show. This is so weird. Like, last night I did a show. I didn't mean to. I had dinner with my agent, and he goes, Chappelle's over at the Gramercy, and some of the Live Nation people are saying, do you want to come by? And we finished dinner. It's pretty late, and I go, it's like 11:45, man. Is it still time to go? He's like, the show just started. I was like, all right. So we go back there. Dave Chappelle, who I've never really met. I mean, I've like stood next to him. I go in his green room, and he's like, "Do you want to do some time?" And my immediate answer was like, "No." Like, I just came here to hang out, and I'm full. I just had dinner, you know. And then someone else is like, "You don't want to do time?" And I was like, "Not really." And then the other guy's like, "Are you seriously not doing any time?" And I go, "I think I should do some time." And they're like, "You should do some time." So I was like, "Okay." So I do like 8 minutes or something, you know. I get off, and then they're like, "All right, Dave's going up." I was like, "Great, I can't wait to see this." Dave goes up, and then 10, actually before he goes up, sorry, he comes in the wings. There's a DJ on stage. He comes up with Chris Rock and they're just like laughing and talking. And I was like, "Oh shit." And I've never actually met Chris.
Yeah.
I've just seen him a couple times do spots. So now I'm like a stand-up comic me again, just like googly-eyed watching them, you know, because Chris was like absolutely my favorite. And Dave goes on for like 15 minutes, and then Chris just walks out, and the place goes bananas, and then they just sit there and riff for like hours.
Yeah.
And I was just mesmerized by it, man.
Was there any point where you thought, "Hey, I'm on this show too. I'll walk back out to everybody"?
I really thought about it, and I thought about how many, like, the parade of booze that would ensue. They're like, "Fuck you!" Like, yeah.
How did it feel being in front of his crowd as well, though? I mean, is that something that no matter what the crowd is, can you adapt?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, look, when I walked out, the MC goes, he goes, "We have a special treat right now," and the crowd was like, "Oh shit!" and then he announced me, and it was such a mediocre response.
Sure.
And I just walked out, and I go, "I'm thrilled to disappoint you," and they were like, "That's funny."
Yeah,
because you just did. So yeah.
But that's like the amazing thing about comedy is it's all put into one genre. You know, there's no point that you would go to a Jay-Z show and someone say, "Hey, Ted Nugent's going to do 5 minutes."
Yeah.
Not that you're the Ted Nugent, and
I took it the wrong way.
but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, everyone just expects, "Hey, funny is funny,"
right?
And it'll work anywhere.
Yeah, and it does. I think there are those. You find them when you do a lot of road work like I do, and you have a variety of material. There are bits and jokes that basically translate everywhere.
Right.
And then there's ones that don't. And there's ones that you realize also, like, as you develop and you develop a fan base, sometimes you don't even think about that some of the stuff that you're doing, it's that, like, that audience is already invested in who you are.
Right.
So they know, at least there's context to your point of view that a new audience would be like, "Where is this coming from?"
Particularly when you podcast, because they get to know you on a level that people never knew comedians before.
That's true.
You know, in a way that people, let's say, Dennis Miller's audience never knew him, or Jerry Seinfeld's.
Right.
You know, they know you. They know stories that you never would have taken to the stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like there's bits that start in podcasts that you never assume would go to stage, but they do. You start having conversations like this, and if you start saying something, and then you're like, "Oh, I guess I'll try that," after the fact. It's like I've listened to stuff on a podcast and be like, "I'll try that on stage," and then it becomes a bit. So it goes, like, both ways.
Well, I was telling this to somebody not too long ago, because I've been doing radio a long time. Before podcasting, there weren't a lot of comics that could come on the radio and be funny.
Right.
But after podcasting, it's amazing. Even a lot of the young guys can just walk out and be conversationally funny.
Yeah, the art of having the conversation, basically, right? And it also highlights how bad so much radio is, too, right? I feel like, so many radio people, for someone who does a lot of radio, there's so many radio guys that aren't good at conversation. And you kind of go, like, how are you not good at this? Like, you don't know how to, I guess they're used to, like, a different style.
Well, they're used to 8 minutes. They're used to entertaining the audience the way a a 45 record entertains the audience.
Right.
You got 3:45.
Yeah.
And then you better move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And be funny that way. Segmented commercials. Boom.
Yeah.
So they're not ever in the moment of the conversation.
There's guys I've gone on the radio where guys like, hey, we're coming back from break. We come back, just take over. All right, here we go. Like that. And I'm like, take over?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And they're like, it's your fucking world, right? They just go ahead. And I'm like, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm going to sit right here.
Yeah.
And you better lead the conversation. Then one guy told me, he's like, oh, you know, I was in here last week. He took all his clothes off, and I was like, how'd that work for the radio audience? Is that funny?
Make what happened last week happen again.
Yeah.
Well, you do local TV too, and I'm always looking for any of this shit that you do on the road because it's so cringeworthy.
Yeah, it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. When did that start? How did that happen when you're out doing a local TV news show? And I guess these are like 9 o'clock in the morning or...
Yeah, sometimes even earlier, sometimes 8. It started actually, I want to say early this year where, you know, it used to be when you don't sell any tickets, people don't realize like that power dynamic of comedians and the clubs and everything with ticket sales. So when you don't sell any tickets, which is the majority of your career, of my career, you know, they just, whatever they tell you to do, you just say like, yes. And that you understand that like you have to do it, like you haven't sold a lot of tickets, so they do these elaborate press schedules for you where it's like, we're gonna pick you up at 6, and you're gonna do like 11 radio stations and then 3 TV stations, and you're like, is this gonna work at all? Because in some markets do have very effective radio, but like with the morning TV stuff, you're always like, do you think that the most likely lady that's watching Good Morning Toledo is going to see me and be like, I want to go see that guy tonight. You know what I mean? Like, so this year, it's like I would have a gig booked at some club, and I'd get the call, you know, like Wednesday, hey, you're all sold out. All 5 shows, all 6 shows sold out. Great. And then they'd go, hey, do you mind doing press Thursday? And I'm like, why? Like, it's all sold out. And they're like, it would help us. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I'll do it, but since it's so awful to do in TV, it's like, first of all, it's 3 minutes, and they'll do things like, it's always the same, like, what can people expect this weekend? And you're like, fucking jokes, you know, or like, what will audiences see? You're like, they'll see me do stand-up, like, and they basically are trying to get you to get into a bit or something, and it's super uncomfortable. So I just decided that, like, I was making jokes with my wife about, like, you know, at first that I was going to become a DJ, and then I was, and she was like, how much are you going to spend on DJ? I was like, 20 grand. I don't know, like whatever it takes to get started. And then I developed kind of a DJ persona, I did buy turntables, and she thought it was way more expensive than it was. But anyway, so I just went in character once as DJ Dadmouth to. And I walked in, and you should see, like, when you do, like, local news in Des Moines, and you walk in, I would walk in with, like, a fake mink fur and a big dookie rope, gold chain, sunglasses, fake diamond earrings. All the staff, they're like, oh, this is exciting. Like, who is this guy? You know, they think Jay-Z walked in.
Yeah.
And then so I would walk in, they're like, we're so excited to see, like, I don't know who you are, but this is going to be good. I can tell because you dress like a maniac. So... And then I would just go in, and they're like, so you're doing shows this weekend? And I would be like, it doesn't even really matter, man. It's all about the after party, you know? And then you look over at the club rep, and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's sold out. Who cares? So I would just start, like, riffing like that. And then I remember I did one in Jacksonville where I announced that I'm non-binary, like that I don't have a pronoun, you know? Like he or her or she, that I'm astral gender, which is like a gender from outer space. And the lady went like, ugh, like she made like a grossed out face. She was like, and she was like, well, that'll be it. Like she wrapped it up. And she was the only lady of all these stops I did that didn't say bye. Like, you know, when,
Yeah.
when you wrap up, you're like, hey.
Yeah.
You kinda, she was like, she made a beeline for the other ways. And she called the club rep later, and she was like, that guy was really weird and made me really uncomfortable.
But when you are in a bit that you know is going to work once it goes viral, but isn't working in that moment, in
Yeah.
that room, how do you not just go, honey, I'm just joking a little bit?
It's
Have
hard
fun."
to. I mean, honestly, sometimes, you know, the hardest part is that it's early.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, like, there's ones that I've done that I watched later. I'm like, oh, like, I forgot to commit because I was so tired. Like, I went in there with the idea, and then I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I'm like, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning for me because I'm flying from the West Coast.
Yeah.
So I'll just like later on be like, I forgot to like sell that.
You just put the
Yeah,
shit on and
I'm
sat
like-
in there.
I'm DJ Dan Brown. Like, yeah.
Well, these things are hilarious, though. They're so strange.
They're so strange. Yeah.
But that's something that you love, DJs, right? I mean, you grew up
I do.
loving it. Yeah.
I love hip hop. I love it, man. I met Cypher Sounds last night at the Chappelle show, and I love the music. You know, the whole reason that I bought those, you know, turntables was just like a absolute just, you know, infatuation with that music and culture, and I just wanted to have something to as like a silly hobby.
Right.
I mean, the clothes and everything became something to play with these people, but
Yeah.
at home I just do it just to have fun, just to goof off, you know.
Well, you're a kid. When you were growing up, you were moving all over, right?
Everywhere. Yeah.
So music is one of the things that it's this, you know, you can hold on to that.
Yeah.
During that, you
That's
know?
true.
I talk about this sometimes with musicians. People forget when you're young how important music is to you.
Yeah.
And there's certain people, certain albums that you almost owe your life to.
Yeah.
You know? And they never find out.
It's true, man. It's true. And I also remember that, you know, when I was a kid, hip hop was called rap. That was
Right.
the section in the music store, and it was like as far as my hands. It was like
Yeah.
2 feet. It was like I could name all the artists in it. You know, like now it's a mega genre.
But everybody was always ready for rap to end its thing.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah.
If
And
you
I think I had also part of like kind of a feeling of, oh, I'm into this thing that not as many people are into, because all my friends, you know, depending on the city that I was living in, would be like, that was the time when they were listening to like Def Leppard
Right.
and Motley Crue, and I was like, what about the Fat Boys and Run DMC?
Yeah.
You know, and that was like my Eric B and Rakim and EPMD. Those were the tapes that I would buy because it was tapes,
Right.
and then just wear them out, just flip them over, wear them out.
So when you're moving and you go to a school and you find out there's nobody that's kind of into that same groove with you, that's just something that you keep at home to not be the weird kid
Yeah.
at school.
Yeah. And I did feel it did at the time. It's silly to say now when you think about how big, and there's probably a lot of kids that kind of identify it with the same way. It did feel like I felt like I was weird in
Sure.
some sense for liking that music, like for pulling out like Digital Underground, and then they're listening to, you know, whatever, Metallica or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I felt like it was. I did a talent show in 5th grade where I did a Young MC song.
This was the first real DJ dad mouth that ever happened.
I did it in drag.
Way to fit in the new town.
Yeah.
How'd it get over?
It crushed.
Yeah.
It really killed. I mean, but I was, you know, I was really selling the. I had a skirt and everything. Yeah.
So when that stuff happens too, when you're a kid, when you're like, hey, I can get up in front of people and get that stays in the back of your head
Oh,
too
definitely.
as well.
Yeah. When you like get like big laughs, something like that, or even sometimes, you know, like riffing with just your group of friends, but like you really go on a roll, you know, where like where they're doubled over, like really laughing. I think every comic experienced that at some point where they were like, oh, you feel more unique in that regard.
Sure.
You know, you go like, oh, there's something there.
Well, that's the thing is that what you're talking about is something that teachers or parents will look at and go, what a waste of time. Break these kids up. This looks like trouble starting. It's not like if you're playing an instrument where an adult can look over and go, oh, Jesus, this kid's got something.
Right.
But there are funny kids that just hang out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I remember, and you remember the other kids too. You're like,
Yeah.
You go, that kid was really, really funny.
I know.
Yeah.
I went home for a funeral not too long ago, and I saw these dudes that I grew up with. They were like, hey, man, you're still doing it. I'm like, somebody should have grabbed us when we were younger. I'm like, I think you guys were funnier than most people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Who make a living doing that.
Yeah.
But, you know, you don't start a band when, like, there's not like, oh, three of us will go on and do things. That's very rare. Just one guy just tends to go off and go, I'm going to try this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I remember encouraging a guy too.
Yeah.
Did you ever do that? Like, I encouraged one guy when I first moved to LA. I was like, you got to do this. You got to, like, you can do this. You're that funny. And he was like, no. Like, I think it was the lack of security.
Sure.
Which is a big part of it.
Yes, no sane person would give into that at all.
You realize how crazy it is to do later. You know?
Oh, yeah. When you find out that you're 800 miles away from your home base and someone stiffed you on a check or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're just like, why does anyone do this?
Or how many times I went so broke. This neighborhood that we lived in, that was so funny. I met with this, I was talking to a cop about this idea basically that involves police, and then we were talking about living in LA, and I go, yeah, I've lived in a bunch of different neighborhoods. And he was like, well, you know, I used to be I was the head of, or a sergeant in the Rampart division. And I go, I live there. And he goes, what? And I go, I live there. He goes, where? I go, right between Rampart and Alvarado. He goes, Jesus, that's fucking terrible, man. He goes, why did you live there? I was like, because I'm a comedian, and that was like where we could afford.
Right, it was a smart move at the time.
I was like, I mean, in retrospect, we probably could have gotten an apartment in a much safer neighborhood for the same money.
Yeah.
But we were also like, okay, we'll just live here. So that's where we lived, man. And there was like, I told him the funny thing was, like, when I moved from there, we lived in that neighborhood for like a year, Christina and I. And when we moved, I got a call from my car insurance company that our car insurance went down like $2,000. And I was like, why? And they're like, because you moved from the carjacking capital of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So now you don't have to pay as high a premium.
I think it's great that it's one thing to put yourself there, but you're like, oh, and Christine will be there too. Yeah. We're fine here. Yeah. You guys are so funny together, which I think it's a big part of why people come to you, to your shows and stuff, because from that podcast you could see the way you guys relate to each other. Sometimes it even goes beyond comedy. You know what I mean? It makes people feel good.
Yeah. I feel like in a way, it kind of, people have told me it's like a throwback to like the way old television shows used to feel like familial. You know, you'd feel like, oh, you feel comfortable because you know these people on the show, and you know their world, and that's what our podcast can be like, an escape for, like, they know these two people, they kind of know what the relationship is in their world, and it feels like you're stepping into it for
exactly. It's the way we feel like, oh, these are the friends I should have. I'm living somewhere else. Yeah, I'm with tighter people or more conservative or weirder, but here are these two people that just kind of see the world. Even when you guys disagree, it's kind of fun. Yeah,
it's kind of fun. It's the most fun thing that we've always said that we've ever done. Like, it's the thing we look forward to doing the most, and we're just lucky. We feel like that there's been an audience that's grown with it now. Yeah, and now it's its own thing. Like, it has such a solid fan base, which, like, we feel so grateful for. But it's just been like this. It's crazy when you have something like that happen when you're just being yourself. Right. Like, we're not doing anything over and you know what I mean? Over and above.
If you were writing sketches and shit, it probably, you know.
Oh, yeah.
What are these two desperate people after?
Yeah, like, another comic told me, he goes, so, like, when do you write the jokes for it? And I was like, what? And he goes, like, do you write all the jokes that you say? I'm like, no. Like, we're just talking, and then whatever. what do you do? And he's like, we write and then we rewrite so that they're, I mean, that's just one approach to it. But I was like, you're basically just popping in. That's what Christina always says. Like, we're just talking about the thing we would have talked about, but there's just mics there.
Yeah.
So and that's really accurate, you know. All the inside jokes and like slang that comes out of it is stuff that's in our house without the show. Right. And you just put it on the show.
But also with her, and you and I were just talking about this before we walked out. There's something about a funny girl that's so oddly sexy that you don't even know where to put it.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? Like, there's no genre to line up other than funny ladies are unbelievably sexy. And I could make a list of them.
Let's start it. Here we go.
I'm gonna go Tracy Ullman right off the bat. And Tracy Ullman came in and did this show one time and just fucking owned me for an hour, man.
Yeah.
I was just sliding down the fucking...
Yeah.
Joan Rivers would do my show, and she was unbelievably crazy sexy.
Awesome and owns the room is Amy Sedaris when
phenomenal.
And I used to actually just get a kick out of watching her own Letterman.
Yeah.
Because you could tell that he had that same affection for her. Like,
he gave it over.
Yeah, he would be like, and he was just smitten with her every time.
When Sandra Bernhard used to do Letterman in the early days, he never was that good again. He never was as good as trying to keep up with her.
Yeah.
Fran Lebowitz would do a show. Crazy good.
Yeah.
But for some reason, no one ever brings that up. And I think your show really showcases that.
Yeah, she's amazing, man. Yeah. And it's cool. Like, I feel like, you know, I get to do this thing with like the person I love, and it's just a wonderful thing. But she's also so funny and keeps getting funnier. So like I enjoy her not just as a partner and stuff, but I keep laughing more and more at like her wit and her, you know, her jokes. She's just funny.
Because that's how you met her, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. I met her at the Cat Club.
Yeah. The old rock, it was like a metal rock bar years ago.
And a rocker owned it.
Yeah.
A guitar player owned it in L.A. And they used to do like these, you know, like 30 people shows, and I went there and she's wearing fishnets, wearing like knee-high boots, smoking. She's like, who the fuck are you? Like, really? Like, and she was way too cool to be, you know what I mean? And I was nice. I was a gentleman, you know? And then she had a boyfriend, so it wasn't even on the table.
So it started as a three-way. The first night you guys were together.
And then as soon as I found out they broke up, I swooped in and I took that shit. Yeah.
That's literally passive aggressive, what he's describing right there.
I grabbed her pussy and I fucking rolled her.
Isn't that odd that that's a punchline and that's just a touchstone for all of us now? I wonder if that'll stay years from now. We'll just like, oh yeah, back at 16 we used to grab the pussy. Remember guys? Those were different times.
I know. It's like people are saying like grab life by the pussy. Yeah. And like it really has become part of the lexicon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, I mean, as soon as you guys hooked up, you like knew, okay, this is the one for me, right? It was that quick.
I really, really, really liked Christina. I was like, she had kind of an attitude, which I liked a lot. Like she wasn't like when I used to go out with girls and they were like, okay, whatever you want to do. I was like, But she was like, whatever, and just had a little edge to her. Yeah, and I was super attracted to it.
So now you guys are a family. Yeah, that's weird, right?
It is weird. Yeah, it's so cool. It's the coolest thing. It's a lot of, you know, it's life changing, obviously, but it is the coolest thing. Like we're so just in love with this little boy. It's the coolest thing.
Isn't that the nuttiest thing that happens?
Yeah.
Isn't that nutty as like when you just think of, oh, if I was stuck in a Schindler's List situation, I would pick someone over my wife in a heartbeat, and she would pick somebody over me in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
You don't realize that what happens that quickly.
I mean, like we talked about, like if someone was like life raft, you know, and she goes, if it was you or the baby, you know, choose the baby in a second. And I was like, not only would I choose the baby, I would hold you under the water. just for the thrill, you know.
And that's literally the most loving thing that you could say, but you don't realize that before. And people go, really? You wouldn't pick your wife? I go, my wife would have killed me. She would have come back and stabbed me to death.
The crazy thing too is like, you know, it's all the cliches you've ever heard about parenthood, but the thing that like it really stands out is that, you know, with each day, as especially in this phase, my son's 10 months old, they get there's a little more development, there's a little more personality, and that makes you more gaga over them, you know, because like they just do one little thing and you're like, God damn it, I love you even more than I did yesterday, you know. It's that, like, it just blows your mind. There's
stuff that reminds you of people that you've known in your family and stuff that you've never seen before. But you were in when he was born, you did all that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah.
That's a hell of an experience, right?
The delivery? Yeah. It's pretty. You know, it was the thing that stood out. First, there was just an annoying nurse. That's what I remember the most. And then there was a shift change during the delivery.
Right.
So like we finally were like with this one nurse who's like working us through, and like I'm holding Christina's leg and she's pushing, and then she's like, well, it's 7, I gotta go, and like and then so Christina's spread eagle, and then another lady walks in and Christina's like, just have a look, like which they're gonna do anyways, but then she's like, wait, you're leaving? And the lady's like, yeah, I gotta go. And she's like, well, another lady comes in. So that was like this funny thing about that delivery. It was like they treated it like it was a restaurant shift, you know?
Yeah.
But it was for childbirth.
Right.
Yeah, so
it's just work to some of those nurses. Yeah,
it's just work. Yeah.
That's why a lot of people end up going in a different direction, have the babies at home and stuff like that, because you realize it's more life-changing than anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we're that's one thing we're the same on. We're like, no. Doctors,
close to the
hospitals,
hospital. Yeah.
Give us, you know, IVs, like all that stuff.
You got an IV too?
I wanted one. I got an epidural. Yeah.
He couldn't move from the hips down. He's just there like, guys, we're going to get there. But that's, you know, when you're on the road and you're away from the kids too, particularly at this age, you can come back and almost meet a new dude.
Dude,
you know?
It happens every week.
Yeah.
Every week. His face looks different when I get home, and he actually does do certain things that he didn't do, like little things. But like they have these sound books, you know, you show kids like, oh, here's a cow, here's a dog, and you try to get him to push the button, and he just looks at them, and then she FaceTimed me yesterday. Oh, he just pushed the button. So you miss stuff like that.
You miss pushing the button.
You miss pushing the button.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the fucking button push.
Sure, I understand. But that's what happens. That's the gift. But also, you know, we were talking about ambition earlier, and you do get oddly more ambitious almost immediately when you're dead. You're just like, wait, maybe I can do one more.
If you want motivation,
yeah,
have a kid.
Right.
I mean, writing more, pitching ideas. I mean, I'm working on a couple projects right now. I mean,
that you wouldn't have, but probably before.
I mean, you know, I don't know if I wouldn't have, but I think you have a different sense of focus, because you do realize for the first time it's not just you. Like when it's just you kind of you feel like, oh man, I was like just a selfish, not like in an insulting way, but you're like, I'm the only thing that's on my mind.
Yeah. Right.
And then you have a wife, and you go like, okay, but when you have a kid, you realize that the whole picture changes. So you work in a more, I think, focused way.
Isn't that and that's something that you should probably tell young comedians. Hey, get some real responsibilities. Get a fucking mortgage. See how hard you work at this. See if you feel like writing tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I know. Like we talk about it. I talk about it with friends that like the older you get and those responsibilities come through, you really realize that you didn't work hard when you think you did.
Right.
You know? You work hard once you have people counting on you.
See, the other thing, too, is because you and Christina, it is somewhat of a family business.
Yeah.
So the kid is not just born into a family, but into a show. This kid is really a show baby, you know?
Yeah.
That's strange.
It is strange.
Yeah.
And we make a big focus into not like some of my friends.
Kreischer.
All right, Bert. Like he puts, like pictures of his children.
Yeah.
But not just him. A lot of guys do this. But then there's other people that like we go like, no, like I feel like we owe him that to not be like, oh, here's 100,000 people to look at you that don't know you and to like or comment on you. Like I feel like it's rude, to do.
The baby got a downvote.
Yeah,
is the society that we live in right now.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't feel comfortable doing that, man.
But when you grow up, like if your dad is a fisherman, you're probably going to fish.
Man, I hope we do a good job in getting him not to do this.
Right. There's something that you love him enough that he's just not needy enough to want to do this.
Yeah. It's like what? Yeah, because we talk about our own reasons for going into this. Like, what was that need to have that approval?
Right.
And I can tie mine into moving a lot and feeling like kind of ignored over my siblings and having like checked out conversations with parents and you go like, oh, maybe that's what fed into the psyche to want to be an entertainer basically. And so you go like, oh man, I'm gonna try to do those things really well so that just to do them well, but then hopefully he's like, I love banking.
Right.
Yeah, like
your big shock is finding out he's secretly doing open mic nights.
Oh my God.
Are you sure you're just not gay? Anything else? But I always think like if you look at Rob Reiner and his.
But then, by the way, I would be like, "Hey, dude, you cannot use my fucking last name. All right, like."
Oh, you'd make him go off into his own.
Absolutely, you can't fuck with what I'm doing up here.
Yeah.
You're open micer, and they'll say Segura, and they'll come see your sorry ass. No way.
But I was thinking Rob Reiner, his dad, of course, Carl Reiner.
Yeah.
Rob, as a little kid, got to see the funniest people of that time. And your kid is going to go through that whether it's conscious or not.
Right.
He's going to know not only are his parents funny, but everybody that
comes over.
Yeah.
I know. And the other thing I think about is, when I hear my parents tell stories, it's always from memory of like this and that. There's a picture or something. My kid is going to have, by the time he's older, probably like 1,000 hours of video footage of his parents having conversations, and conversations like who his dad wants to fill up and seal shut with cum, and like, and then his mom being like, whose dick I'd like to suck. It's like when we do like crazy bits like that, and also just to see like what my parents really talk like, because you always have that thing where you go like, you don't know what that relationship's really like. And even though when we do this show we're aware that we're on a show, I think there's a lot of genuine moments, and I think it's going to be so unique for a kid to be able to actually see his parents have hours of back and forth conversation. I mean, I know I'd be fascinated by it if that existed, where I could watch my parents,
I hadn't even once thought of this, because even if it's just one parent doing it, you're like, oh, that's dad, he's performing.
Right.
But when it's your mom and dad together, that thing is just too strong.
Yeah.
That's them. That's your folks.
That's your folks, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, he's going to need a lot of help, a lot of therapy for that kid.
I mean, he's going to be fucked up. Yeah. I mean, completely,
We always talk about how he's just going to be like, none of your fucking jokes are funny. You guys suck. Like, and we're like,
hopefully he'll just be able to roll with the bit and be just like, I'll tell you who I'd fuck. And she's at school right now, and I know she's a teacher, but she's just amazing. But the chances are that'll be the survival thing that he goes for that.
That's true.
But the beautiful thing is, just let him, whatever direction. That's the thing about, if you ever look back, for me, at parenting, just like, let them go off and do some of these things. Let them, who knows what's going to happen?
Who knows? We could have a show together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could end up, or being pushed out.
Yeah.
But, But yeah, you could end up where it's just three of you doing a show one day.
That would be hilarious, man.
Yeah.
I know.
It would be so funny, and by that time, you know, it'll be easy to do it for anyway. So he'll be sitting in the back seat, and it's like a little fake car seat. The car will be driving itself. He's just doing like, I'm going to pick up a 20-minute riff right here. Just go with it. I mean, that's the thing about this, that when you started, there's no way you could understand that podcasting would be a thing that was real.
No.
And that was been as effective for your career as anything. So
Yeah.
what's next? What is coming that we can't even imagine right now?
You know, everything is to a degree oversaturated, which means that I feel like in the case of oversaturation, the best of do stand out, right? Because there's just so much. And then that's always means that it's like on the brink of something new kicking off as well, you know?
Right.
So I feel like, not that this is totally new, but I feel like video-wise, that hasn't been tapped into as hard, actually seeing, because like podcasts, even though people stream them video or show a YouTube, it's still like an audio medium.
Sure, you're doing it while you're doing something else.
Yeah. But I feel like that, you know, the on-demand aspect, video, the fact that video producing is cheap and video editing can be done cheap, I just feel like there's some aspect of that will take off, where people will be creating, like you see obviously mini versions of it with like Vine, Instagram, but I feel like, you know, it's so cheap now to be able to put together a video, a show. You can do it. It's on every, like, you see how many TV shows are out there now, and that now it's on like Amazon makes shows, and it's like, I just feel like that will trickle down to people doing that themselves. They won't even be looking for Amazon or Hulu or Netflix to do it. They'll just do it themselves. And I think comedians are going to do that a lot.
Just everybody is going to be in a video TV show.
Yeah.
Almost all the time.
Yeah.
You know, that you'll just be on a plane with people. Like,
Yeah.
here we go.
Here we fucking go.
It's all virtual reality. And
Yeah.
just like, okay. Each one of these people here will have their own show.
Yeah.
And part of their shows, they're watching our dumbasses.
Yeah.
It's just,
Like everyone here is going to be holding their camera up.
yeah. The camera
we'll
will
hold
just
it back.
be in their eyes somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the weird thing about it, you know?
Yeah.
Because people look back on these phones that we think are so advanced and go, oh my God. They'll be like the way that our kids look at phone booths and go, was that a thing? And
An
they're like,
iPhone?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the iPhone will be like, you could touch it.
Yeah.
And then it would do what you wanted. And they'd be like, like, all you got to do is wink at it now.
Right.
And like,
Just think of something and it happens.
yeah.
But like we said, it wasn't that long ago that when you got Netflix, I'm like, I don't know. Like if someone tells me they have a show that, because I grew up with where I think the shows are supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's also, yeah. And like when you think about viewership numbers, do you ever like watch, you know, 20 years ago, there were multiple shows that would get like 10 and 15 and 20 million viewers and more, you know, because limited number of shows. Now there's so many networks, so many shows like we're talking about, that it's like they consider like 500,000 is like a victory.
They're like,
you know?
great. Yeah.
That's great, man.
But I had Alan Alda on this show once. I mean, and the last MASH that they did, 125 million people watched it. And you're just like, and it's just a show. You know what I mean? It's not like it was 9/11 or something.
Right.
You know? Like something like that could get giant everybody paying attention. But just to have the end of a show now, no, it's nowhere near that kind of.
So that trend is going to increase still, because it's going to grow even more, which means eyeballs again. Like there's just too many options. Still, there will be a Big Bang. I think they get like 20 million, but like after that, it's a steep drop off, man. It's a steep drop off.
And that, I think, even shows like that, I think, are watched by older people who grew up where it's, you know, Monday at 8, my show is on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when you do your podcast, you just put it out there and it's getting hit at all different times.
It's getting hit at all different times, and I don't even see really what happened until the next week.
Right.
Like that's when I check in, because I do the next one goes up, so you see how the last week tracked, and then that's basically it. But yeah, I mean, it's an incredible the consumption world. Everything is, you know, like I was telling the Netflix people like that. It's funny when you put out a special, the day of you'll get like 500 messages that say like, when's the next one? And you're
Yeah.
like, Jesus, like,
Yeah.
do you know how long this took to put together?
Yeah.
But that's more indicative of today's culture of like entertainment now. It's like, you know, when you do a YouTube vlog, all the most popular ones with the most subscribers, they have a daily schedule. They make a vlog, you know, a video today, and then tomorrow the same thing. And so that your consumers are like, oh, I'm back for more. But that has like spilled into things like, you know, Netflix shows or stand-up specials where they go like, I saw your special, so when's the next one come out? And you're like, fucking 2018?
Yeah.
I don't know, a while from now?
Yeah.
It's not going to be tomorrow because of the way that stand-up specials are built, you know?
But also when people look at you, you look like you're just thinking of it and saying it. And
Right.
that's a problem of a good stand-up because you don't see how hard it is to
Right.
get to that point.
Oh, yeah. And like how you may have said that bit for 6 months
Right.
one way and you still didn't have it figured out, and then one night you tried something and it clicked and you're like, yeah, that took me half a year
Yeah.
to get to that point, you know, for that one bit. And that's how bits really develop.
Sure.
You know? So it's
Or
just like,
sometimes you even think they're done, but then something gets
Yep.
tagged and you're like, okay, no, that's 10 times more.
it gets
done.
I always feel like that happens on the nights when you're like not really there almost.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh, whatever, there's 20 people at this show. So instead of like doing the bit the way you do it, your mind goes off in a different way and you say something different. And then you're like, oh, shit,
Yeah, right.
I should have thought of this
Yeah.
a while ago.
Because you were awake again. Because
Yeah.
something wasn't working
Right.
and you go off autopilot. Or maybe the audience goes off autopilot.
Yeah.
You know? It always amazes me that people go, this is the way you're supposed to react to jokes too. Like the
Yeah.
people were like, yes, pop, pop, yeah, pop, pop, ah.
Have you
Like
s-
little babies when I
Yeah.
watch.
Have you seen Have you seen comics just like yell at audience before for
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
I did this Vegas gig once where this guy was like, that is where you laugh. And the audience still was like,
Yeah.
like, he's like, I've been doing this for years. Then people always laugh right there. And I
Right.
was like, that's why they're not laughing. Because you've never changed it.
Yes, it starts to deteriorate right
Yeah.
there in front of you. Do you, if you look at this, do you think where you want to be in 5 years, or you just play it out as it's going?
I mean, yeah, I think about it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, I'd be lying if I said I don't want to have continue on this path and hope that it works out, have success. But again, I don't feel like that thing where like I don't think you force stuff like that.
Right.
It comes together. So I think I'll be more focused just on what I'm doing, and I hope that like one of the, you know, development show things works out for me. I hope to do another special next year, and I hope I can keep on that path of kind of doing them every few years. And if it goes well for me, I'll be very thankful, but I don't think I can force it, you know.
I think it's also interesting how when people just accept when you get to the next level successfully. You know what I mean? Like, I even think when I thought of you, I thought, okay, here he is. Oh, no, he's up here. Wait, after that last one,
Yeah.
he's here. You know what I mean? But then you just go, that's, you know. I think that's what happened with Ray Romano, is like at a certain point, something broke through and people went, oh, that's
He's-
Ray.
He's there.
He's up there, and
Yeah.
there's no reason for him to come down. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Isn't that what the way to do it?
No, yeah. I think, you know, is to, well, and this is something that I will say that you do really well, is wherever you are, you act like you belong there.
Yeah.
You act like you belong there.
Yeah.
You don't look like you sweat it. And I think that's why you were able to walk out in front of that Chappelle audience and people went, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, man. You know that comes also with time and with age, with doing this a while. I feel like if you know what I mean, like,
Sure.
I feel like the best thing that ever happened to me is that the success I have achieved is like kind of, it's been over a long
Right.
period of time. It really makes me look at like really young successful people, and I go like, wow, like,
Yeah.
to be able to deal with that must be a thing, you know,
Yeah.
because I don't feel like if I was achieving what I achieved now at like 22 3 or something, I think that'd be overwhelming.
Well, you'd be dead. And we were like, hey, there's a guy.
Yeah.
He really could have made it.
Yeah.
He really could have went the long haul. But, you know, just another thing to give yourself credit for, you cannot plan gradual success any more than anything else either. Like what you did is also as much luck than if you just walked into some room. It was great for you, you know?
Yeah.
Dude, we're all happy for you, though. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's really cool when it happens to the good ones. Tom Segura, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
So much.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks,